Well, I was astonished to get the call. I was humbled because I am completely happy being the sidekick of Merle, and I'm completely happy being in the wings of things because he's the visionary, and I knew from the time I was 15 that he was going to go places and do things, and I wanted to be along for the ride, and I'm just proud to be that left-hand person for him. I was a cattle rancher's daughter, and I was dating Merle, who was a hog farmer. On our dates, instead of going to the movies, we docked tails and gave iron shots, and that was a date.
Gayle's a country girl, and it doesn't matter what you're doing. If you're in the middle of doing something, she has no problem rolling up her sleeves or putting on her boots and getting right in the middle of doing it with you. Gayle is not afraid to get dirty. She told us a story about, I just was 2 weeks ago, but her and her sister used to feed the cattle with her grandpa because she has a 1950 Ford F-100. And she said she got it because it reminded her when her and her sister used to feed cattle with her grandpa. So we said, how did you used to do that? And she said, well, when I would get on the floor on my hands and knees, and I would work the gas, the clutch, and the brake, and my sister would stare and shift the gears, standing up in the seat while my grandpa was in the back of the pickup truck feeding the cattle.
When our hog market that we took the slaughter pigs to in Phoenix moved to LA, we decided it was time to head east. So we went east, and Merle started work for Gilt Edge Pig Farms. It was the largest integrated hog operation in the United States at the time. Got some wonderful experience, worked on breeding projects, and then PIC recruited us to go to Thailand in 1985 or 6, and we had little babies. I was like, you got something else? So they hired Merle as the genetic nucleus manager, and he depopulated the farm, and we lived on the farm. And when we repopulated the farm, we got a huge sale to the Chinese government in Guangzhou, China. And Merle raised the pigs, and the contingent came across from China, and I went to work for the company, and I was the exporter.
They put, I think it was like 1,900 hogs on an airplane and flew them to China, and one of the generators went out in the airplane when they landed somewhere, so they had to sit around with these 1,900 hogs until they ended up fixing the cargo plane. And I called her son Brandon. I said, Brandon, how many of these stories does your mother have? He said, oh, she's got to have dozens of those stories different about, the hog industry when they were with PIC and back when they lived in Kentucky. And nobody knows about any of those things, and I'm glad that all that's going to be brought to light.
Well, one of the really cool things, at the same time that she was responsible for their international division, she was also responsible for developing their health assurance group. And in doing that, and to me, when you're working with health assurance and veterinarians, that goes hand in hand with weed care principles and animal welfare, et cetera. And so she helped develop these guidelines and the testing policies centered around animal health. She also was very much involved with all of those different things that I talked about regarding transport of animals internationally. There was one trip I know that they took 1,900 animals on an airplane to China, and so making sure that those animals received the care and attention that they needed. I mean, that's what she stood for, and she made sure to the nth detail that all was carried out, and those things went off without a hitch typically because of her attention to detail and her level of care. So to me, that's what she represents when I think of we care, and she does that with people too. I mean, the people that she works around, and whether you're talking about the animals or the buildings that they're in, the facilities, she's always got her eye on all of those things, and and making sure that those principles are carried out. And to me, I think those are the same principles that We Care represent.
So we went on the commercial side, and we came out to Oklahoma, and the first plot of land Merle purchased from Mr. Jack Choate in Hennessy, Oklahoma. It just grew and grew, and the oil industry was in one of its downturns. The people were very excited. We had lots of people that were on family farms and that were able to stay on their family farm because the farms were there and they could have a livelihood outside of their family farm and make money.
When these operations came to Hennessy and Oklahoma in the early 90s and into Kingfisher and major counties, and then on into the Ames area with Roberts Ranch of Oklahoma and into the Woodward and that area in the later 90s, I saw economic growth. And even though her husband Merle was seen as as the key driver making that happen, I knew enough about Gayle to know that she was in the background helping make that happen. It was farming and oil country through 1990. And as we went into the decade of the 90s and on into the 2000s, we've seen the swine industry flourish in these areas, in these counties, and help make a huge way of life for a lot of people. And I know that she was part of that.
Lucky for me, and lucky for everybody around here, her and Merle decided to come to Oklahoma and settle here.
She was in charge of the export department, and she exported pigs literally all over the world and helped set up new countries with first-time breeding programs and those kind of things. And then when we started our company, she's always been behind the scenes, and she's always been a person that's always gives of herself, no matter what it takes. She puts 110% into everything, and she's always been more involved in the community efforts than people can ever realize. So many times that there's employees in our company that have issues or problems that I'm not even aware of, but she gets involved and she makes sure that their personal needs and whatnot, if it's a situation that needs help, that it gets taken care of. So I thought when she got this award, I thought, who's more deserving than someone who's been involved in all aspects of our company and helping the pork industry around the world and even here in the U.S. grow, because everything we've done, she's behind the scenes. Gayle's a kind of a person that it's never about her. It's always about what's best for mankind.
When I got to Enid, I learned that 17% of the residents in Enid are food insecure. And 1 in 4 school children go to bed hungry. And that just touched my heart. And I was mentioning that to Merle, and he with his big heart, said, well, we can do something about that. I called Keith, and I said, Keith, I need some pigs. And he said, well, some gilts, some boars, what do you need? And I said, I need some sow sauce, some sausage sows. So we coined a new phrase, sausage sows. So in August and in February, we take a dozen sausage sows to Big Country and process it. And that frozen sausage goes to Loaves and Fishes, which is a food shelter that has been created by Gayle Wynn and Dr. Barry Pollard's wife, Roxanne, to help the food insecurity in Enid. So we're really excited about that.
Loaves and Fishes is one of Gayle's big charities. Twice a year, Gayle quietly has arranged with the Loaves and Fishes in Enid. We donate Roberts Ranch 6 sows for processing into sausage. And I think they do some of the ground pork with that too, which is passed out through the needy in the Enid area, Garfield County area. And you think about what 12 sows, the amount of sausage and the amount of ground pork that 12 sows produces for a community of our size. And just to make sure that there's nobody going hungry, nobody not getting their protein.
Kids are my first love. And just pains me to see hungry children. When we lived on the Mexican border, there was some food insecurities there as well. Our families were blessed because we were ranchers and farmers and we were doing fine, but there were a lot of itinerant workers that weren't quite as, didn't have quite the food security that we had. And you see children walking around and you know that they're hungry. Even when you're a small child, it makes a huge difference in your life to know that you can alleviate just a tiny bit of suffering. I think that's why God put us here.
I can remember a time when Gayle called me up. She says, "Keith, I need you to do me a favor." I said, "What's that, Gayle?" She goes, "There's this little old lady that lives at such and such street, and her bushes have grown out onto her steps so far that it's making her hard to get in and out of her house with our groceries because she can't hold on to the banister on the steps and walk up the steps and get into her house and carry our groceries." So we took a couple guys and we went over to this lady's house that Gayle didn't really know much about. She just heard about this woman through the church. We went over there and trimmed up the bushes on her front lady's house. She was the sweetest little old lady. And you know, these are all the things that Gayle does in the community for people. And she doesn't acknowledge that she does any of it. She doesn't let anybody know that she does any of it. She just quietly makes a phone call. I tried to think back when I first met Gayle, and the thing about that is, I don't remember. It's like when you meet Gayle and you get to know her, it's like you've known her forever. It's not like you're just meeting somebody for the first time. It's like, hey, it's my friend I haven't seen in 20 years, but you know who she is. She's just that kind of person. You know,
she served as a mentor and a trainer and a friend whenever somebody needed one. And I think she's done that same thing here in Oklahoma, and it's really cool to see her being awarded this.
The family is really important. You know, there's not one person out there that's doing all this. It's an entire family. It's moms and dads and grandma and grandpas and sons and daughters. And I just remember my son saying he can remember some of his earliest memories were being in the hog barns. And it makes you strong, it builds character, and it brings the family together. And it brings, with the family comes the community. And when the community comes together, it strengthens the whole United States.
I think it's extremely cool that she's a person that she's a very humble person, and she's never been one that wanted to be in the foreground of everything that's happened, but she was always making things happen quietly, and that is, so it gives me, I mean, it does make me feel really good and gives me great satisfaction to see her being awarded something that she very much deserves. I can't think of anybody that would be more deserving.
I know Gayle would have never tooted her own horn, or she would have never told anybody anything she had anything to do in the pork industry. So we had to drag it out of her and not even tell her we were nominating her for the award, and tell her nothing until after it was all done and say, "Gayle, guess what we did?" And then, you know, she can give you the dirty look and say, "Why'd you do that?" But she deserves a recognition.
She helps people in the community that wouldn't even know, but if there's somebody that she sees that's having some kind of a problem, or somebody needs help, or if there's a fundraiser for an individual who has some kind of a health issue, or they're one of their children or something, she's the first one there to either be involved or certainly make sure that she does all she can do to support the situation. She's always been that way, and that's just the kind of person she is.
It's infinite what we can do in our industry to lift the world.